for joining me for today's episode of the Simply Financial Podcast. This is your host, Christopher Calandra. Would like to increase your financial IQ with today's episode, which is based on a fascinating, at least in my opinion, element of the U.S. job market. So to set the stage, I heard a claim on a recent podcast, something that caught my attention as sort of fascinating. But then I sort of moved on. I didn't verify the claim, but it kind of was in the back of my head, if you know what I mean. Please note that I could be a bit skeptical about what I read and what I hear. I definitely do not trust the media. So fast forward, in mid-March, I read some research from my friends at First Trust. They put out this Monday morning outlook, which I find to be very good. It's one page, some really good information. Brian Westbury, their chief investment officer, is somebody that I respect and like a lot. Don't always agree with, but I hold him in high regard. This particular piece of research was titled, "Is the Job Market Really That Strong?" The research that First Trust put out, this piece, sort of backed up the claim that I had heard on the podcast. So that kind of caught my attention. So I want to get into the claim, but first, let's talk about the basics. The headline job market numbers the last couple of months have been strong, or at least appear to be. In February of 2024, non-farm payrolls grew by 275,000. That is a good number. It beat consensus estimates, which were about 200,000. Unemployment did tick up a bit. I think it went from 3.7 to 3.9. It's definitely at 3.9, ticked up slightly. So here's the but. Is the previous 2 months, December and January, the unemployment or the new job numbers were revised downward by 167,000 jobs. So if you picture it, in early February, they put out the January job market and the number was X. I don't have it at my fingertips. And then you got some headline news as, hey, the economy's good, we created jobs. And then it was the same thing in December. But then in February, the government, the Labor Department, goes back and looks at the previous 2 months and adjusts it. It has more information, and they adjusted it downward. So there are some people, including my good friend Eric Lopkin. I used to host a Business Buzz radio show with him. He has the Raw Naked Truth podcast. I'm a regular guest on that show. He has another show, Carnivore Bites, the founder of the Modern Observer Group. You know, he believes that this is all the quote unquote deep state, the administrative state, the Biden administration playing with the numbers, getting the benefit of the headline news, which is when everybody pays attention, and then later revising it downward. I think there's some merit to this argument based on what happened in December and January with the 167,000 downward revision. That is a lot, by the way. That is the most since 2008. That was when we had the Great Recession and all kinds of craziness was going on in the economy. So unusual to have such a big revision downward. Additionally, when you look across 2023, the average downward revision was 30,000 jobs a month, meaning that they make an announcement and then revise it downward later on to the average of 30,000. That's not an insignificant amount of revision. That is, again, very high by historical standards. So maybe the government's playing with the numbers. I suspect they probably are, but I can't be sure of it. That's just my opinion. So that's kind of where we are job markets wise. 3.9% is an indication of a healthy job market. There may be some manipulation going in the government numbers. It depends on your opinion, but I think you can make a pretty good case that something is going on. But that's not even the fascinating part. So here's what I got to. This is what I wanted to get to, I should say. In the last 12 months, this is according to the Labor Department now, is the U.S.-born employment population that is working is down 900,000 jobs over the last year. So native-born Americans, there's 900,000 less in the labor force than there were a year ago. But foreign-born U.S. workers are up 1.5 million jobs over the last year. So I think that's fascinating. I don't know exactly what to make of it. This is not a political show. I'm not attacking anybody. I really just want to present this as a wild piece of information. This comes from the Labor Department. I heard it once. I got this from First Trust. Their research is good. It backs up. I believe it's good information. And I find it completely fascinating. And I have said on a few of the recent podcast shows is I think it's interesting how the Biden administration is touting a lot of successes that they have or what they believe they have, but it's in some ways falling on deaf ears with the American public. Recently, he did the State of the Union address, and he touted a lot of accomplishments his administration have had, yet he didn't get a bump after the State of the Union speech. In other words, his poll numbers didn't go up. And I saw some other research separate from First Trust, and I always like to keep an eye on this. It's a simple thing: right track, wrong track. You ask people, is the country on the right track or the wrong track? In that February 24-25 time period, which is around the State of the Union, 67% of Americans say that the U.S. is on the wrong track. So that's an alarming number. It seems to me if you're an incumbent president. 67% means that it's not all Republicans that are natural opponents to the Biden administration and his potential reelection. 67% is a big number. So I think about this, and I don't know. I'm just talking out loud. Is this wrong track, right track part of it? Is it tied into this labor market where the headline numbers are good and it's not all bad? But there's a lot of nuance here, and some of the headline stuff may not be representative of what's actually happening on Main Street, what's happening in local communities. And that's why the American people are in a sour mood. I don't think it's any one thing, but I think this might be one of the ingredients that lead to this sour outlook that the American people have. But again, I think it's fascinating. In the last year, healthy job market, but American-born workers, jobs down 900,000, foreign workers down 1.5 million. Something is certainly going on. It caught my attention with the job market, as well as these other potentially manipulative things going on by the government. But that's not to say that the job market is awful. I'm not suggesting that at all. But again, there might be some manipulation going on. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Simply Financial Podcast. Check us out on the website, elliottwealth.com. You could find out information about the work my team and I do here to help our clients work towards and hopefully achieve their financial goals. Also, subscribe to the Simply Financial Podcast if you haven't done so already. I'll be back with you soon. Thanks for listening today.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of Osaic Wealth, Inc., and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note, the information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of information provided at these websites. Nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues or any consequences arising out of your access to or your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of these websites, you are leaving our website and assume total responsibility and risk for your use of the websites you are linking to. Securities and advisory services are offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC. Insurance services offered through Elliott Wealth Management Services, LLC, not affiliated with Osaic Wealth, Inc.